Thanks for tuning in to the Lean 911 podcast, where you'll have a voice directly from the Gemba. I will rely on my 3 decades of lean successes as well as my failures to answer your most challenging questions regarding your lean transformation. I'm your host, Mark DeLuzio, President and CEO of Lean Horizons Consulting and the Principal Architect of the Danaher Business System. Looking forward to your questions. Now, let's go to the Gemba. Hi, Mark DeLuzio, episode 70. I want to talk today about pricing your product or your service for that matter. This episode is called Market-Based Pricing versus Cost-Based Pricing. And let's first talk about the difference between the two. Cost-based pricing. I take my cost of my product. I determine how much margin I want to make on that product. I add those two numbers together and I get my sales price. And that's what I give to the customer. On the other hand, market-based pricing is I determine the market, what the market will bear for a price for my product. I subtract my cost and I end up with profit or loss, depending on what that looks like. You see the difference? Market-based pricing is market-based. Cost-based pricing is determined on what your cost and desired margins are. Now, I can't tell you how many clients I've asked, hey, do you guys do market-based pricing? The knee-jerk reaction is always, oh yeah, sure we do. Really? Can you show me your pricing process? Well, most of them don't have a pricing process. And by the way, you're looking to, improve your profitability and you're not looking at your pricing or how you do discounts. That is a huge miss. So market-based pricing, yeah, we do market-based pricing. Oh, okay. So then I start analyzing their quotes and why they lost their quotes. Oh, I know why we lost that. Why? Our price was too high. I'm sorry, our costs were too high. Wait a minute. You just got through telling me you do market-based pricing. So what does your cost have anything to do with it? No, our costs were too high, and we ended up overpricing the product. But you just got through telling me you're doing market-based pricing. Yeah, we are. Okay. I need to go hit my head against the wall against the outside of the building. I don't want to cause too much commotion inside, okay? You guys are driving me nuts. You're not doing market-based pricing. You're doing cost-based pricing. Now, let me tell you a few other things that I see when people do cost-based pricing. Besides losing business, the costs they're using are very curious as to their accuracy. First of all, most companies don't do a good job calculating their cost, especially when it comes to overhead and overhead allocation. They take the big overhead bucket and divide it by some arbitrary number like direct labor hours, direct labor dollars, whatever. Some try to get a little more sophisticated and use ABC, activity-based costing. But they take this overhead pool and they spread it like peanut butter across a piece of bread. And a lot of that overhead is fixed cost. But they're using these fully absorbed overhead rates with all that fixed cost time and time again to cost their product on a cost basis type of calculation. How many times are you going to recover your fixed overhead cost? So you're pricing yourself right out of the market because of that very reason alone. If you're going to use anything with costing, you should use variable-based contribution margin, where you're taking your variable costs, which are your materials and your variable overhead and your labor, and at least use that and not try to account for that fixed overhead time and time again. If I had fixed overhead of $10 million and I only made one unit, my cost per unit would be $10 million as it relates to overhead. But if I made 10 million units, my cost per unit would be $1. But guess what? I'm still spending $10 million in fixed overhead. Okay. I'm still spending the same amount of money on fixed overhead. So I'm trying to calculate a profit on the same number that maybe after the first couple of months, my break even point, I already got that number done. And now I'm outpricing my number. So costing on a pricing, I should say, on a cost base is a problem. And a lot of companies lose a lot of business because they don't know how to cost their product. Now, some people might say that cost-based price ensures your costs are covered. You don't only look at this from a macro perspective, but on a product by product perspective. Which products really have the most, you know, profitability? It's a challenge, and nobody seems to know. When I went to lean accounting back in the late '80s, it was very easy. We had a very easy picture to see exactly what our costs were for our cost per unit. And I could tell you by tooling, I could tell you by supplies, labor, indirect labor, materials, of course. But we didn't cost a product that way. We use market based pricing, and then we said, look, we want to make X percent margin. So that means our target cost has to be Y. And we took that target cost and built it into the new product development process as a cost challenge. So, for example, if we said the market price of a Jake brake was $500, I'll use some simple numbers, and we said we wanted to make 40% margin, which is $200. That means the target cost had to be $300, right? I do that right? Yeah. $500, and I wanted to make a 40% margin. So my target cost has to be $300. We start our new product design, and after tollgate one, we do the math and we find out that our target cost is not 300; it's coming in at 350. This is a multifunctional team doing this. Well, we have a $50 design test that we got to work out. We got to design $50 out of the cost before we hit job one. And then the next tollgate, we may find we got it down to 320, but we still have a $20 design test that we have to uh, take out of the product cost. And a lot of that has to do with design and process, sometimes materials, right? But we work it during the design process. So every time we hit job one at Jake Break, we're making the money that we said we wanted to make relative to margins because of target costing. But we started with market based pricing. What was the customer willing to pay? What's the market look like here? If the customer's only willing to pay $500 for your product and your costs are outrageous and you come up with a $700 cost, let's say, yeah, but we're the only game in town. Yeah, for now. For now, you are until somebody else comes along and figures out to do what you do at a better, more efficient way and offers a better price. So, it's a short-lived issue if you're doing it that way. And then the question is, well, why should somebody buy from you at all? Simply because you have the lower price? Well, that means you just made yourself a commodity. Well, how do you leverage the best lead times, the best delivery, the best quality, and get sales to value sell those capabilities within your product portfolio? Yeah, Mr. Customer, we're 20% more expensive, except for we never miss a delivery and our quality is the best. And do you know that 1 hour worth of downtime for you is worth $5 million? That's going to hit your bottom line. And we won't let that happen. So the question you really have to ask yourself, Mr. Customer, is are we really that much more expensive? Right? That's how we have to think about this, right? But I will tell you now, I've asked clients to do what I call a loss analysis on their quotes. And when you get past and know how to ask the right questions, the easy knee jerk reaction is, oh, you guys are too expensive. But you really get down to it, you find out things like, well, your quality sucks, your lead times are not consistent, or they're too long, your on time delivery, stuff like that. You keep shipping the product to the wrong place with the wrong barcodes, or whatever. So there's always more to why customers don't do business with you than they're telling you, but you got to inquire and find out. So this loss analysis is what we use to Pareto our losses and then go after it that way. We find out that 40% of our losses is because of poor quality. Okay, well, let's get into it and find out what about quality. Is it the electronics? Is it the software? Is it the hardware? By what vendor? By what salesperson? Are we taking the wrong technical specifications from the customer? See all these questions that we would ask and start creating all these Paretos to figure out why we're losing business. But if we're costing our product based on or pricing our product based on cost, we're losing it because at the bottom line, customers are not going to pay for your waste. And even if they do, it's short lived because somebody else is going to figure out how to do it and offer a better, more responsive, better quality product at a lower cost and a higher value than you. Market based pricing. Very few people do it. Everybody kind of says they do it though. Right. And let me finish by one other thing I'd like to talk about. This business about cost plus contracts. So you tack on a margin, let's say 20% onto whatever your costs are to produce the product. And government accounting has all these standards as to what you can and can't include in the cost. I've done a lot of that kind of accounting in the past. But I had two companies one time. One was a Danaher company, and one was a client of mine. And it was a cost plus type of deal. And actually, the client told me, Mark, you can't take our costs down. I identified millions of dollars of extra costs that they were incurring. If you take our costs down, our revenue is gonna come down, and I'm gonna lose my job. I can't have you take all that cost out. So right there, we're admitting that we're passing higher costs on to the customer, right? So my question was this: okay, I can see how taking costs out are going to affect your current situation on a short-term basis. Your profits will be less if your costs are less. I can do the math, but aren't your customers looking for you to get into these other avenues of products that you're not participating in now? Yeah, yeah, we're talking to them right now about getting into medical and getting into, okay. How likely are you to win those contracts with or without reducing your costs on this contract? God, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, you got to think long term. The chances of you getting those contracts are diminished because of your knowingly, knowingly, now that I've told you what we need to do, higher costs that you're passing on to the customer. And to me, that's immoral. I don't know. But again, he told us to stand down. He said, "Hey, look, no, I don't even want you to mention that to my boss. Do not let him know that you guys found all this money." Okay, then guess what? I can't help you. We need to move on, and we did. So, okay, pricing, market-based pricing. Is your company truly pricing to the market, or are they pricing to cost? I'd be interested in your comments on this. Email me at mark@lean911.com. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, you'll see my email at the bottom of the screen. But I'd like to know what your company is doing and what do they think they're doing when you ask the question, do we price based on market or do we price based on cost? I can almost guarantee most of the answers are going to be, yeah, we price to market, but when you look under the covers, they're pricing to cost. That's a great way to go out of business, by the way. All right. But a lot of companies don't have the courage to do it. So what can I tell you? You can't take zero to the bank. I mean, if you price to market and find out that you're making a 30% gross margin versus a 40, I can at least take 30% to the bank. I can't take zero. Okay. Episode 70, Mark DeLuzio, Lean 911. Stay lean. Write to me. Let me know what you found out. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to the Lean 911 podcast. I'll be happy to address your questions or feedback on future episodes. Email me at mark@lean911.com. You can check out our other episodes by visiting our website at lean911.com, our YouTube channel, wherever you listen to podcasts. This is your host, Mark DeLuzio. Thanks for listening.